This episode is brought to you by Content Multiplied. It's not a secret anymore that content creation is really important, but very few people talk about the importance of consistency. And I myself have really struggled with that consistency. And for that reason, I looked for a solution, and Content Multiplied was a really good one for me. Since using them, I've been able to focus on what I enjoy the most, which is recording podcasts, while Myla and her team are really taking care of everything else. Whether you have a podcast, you're holding keynote speeches, you're doing a YouTube series, you're writing a blog, a newsletter, a book, the Content Multiplied team can really take whatever you're producing and repurpose it into a series of micro content, and suddenly you have dozens and dozens of pieces that can be shared for you, and Content Multiplied even takes care of that for you. Unlock your content superpower with Content Multiplied and go to contentmultiplied.com today. That's contentmultiplied.com. Thanks, Myla, and let's go into the show. You are listening to Impact Hustlers, and I am your host, Michael Schaffrath. I have made it my mission to inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs to solve some of the world's biggest social and environmental problems. And for this reason, I am speaking to some of the best entrepreneurs out there who are solving problems such as food waste, climate change, poverty, and homelessness. My goal is that Impact Hustlers will inspire you either by starting an impact business yourself, by joining the team of one, or by taking a small step, whatever that may be, towards being part of the solution to the world's biggest problems. In today's episode, I speak to Amy Keller, the co-founder and CEO of FAVES, a company making candy from upcycled fruits and vegetables with low sugar and all natural ingredients, and it's good for the climate, so it seems like mission impossible, but we'll talk about the product in a bit. Amy has spent much of her career in social impact, actually, supporting projects as an advisor and also spending time as an executive with organizations like Life Earth and the X Prize Foundation. And I'm really excited to have you on the show, Amy, to talk about FAVES and your journey.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Amazing. So let's cover first a bit your personal story and also your family history a little bit in terms of how did you end up working in sweets, and what's your personal journey throughout the last few years?
Sure. So I come from sugar. My family owns a candy factory, Spangler Candy Company. We sell 2 billion Dum Dum lollipops every year. We're the world's largest lollipop maker, but also make everything from Neckos to Sweethearts to Circus Peanuts to candy canes. You name the nostalgic candy. And I think for me, I've had a career working on the environment and health and well-being as a 7-time Ironman, in which obviously health and nutrition are an important part of the sport. These two worlds collided when I was in Svalbard, Norway, visiting the Global Seed Bank to learn more about food security. So at the same time I was doing that, I was reading Paul Hawken's book, Drawdown. I don't know if you've read it before, but in it, they talk about food waste being the number one thing you can do around climate. And I learned that roughly a third of the world's food is never eaten, which means land and resources used and greenhouse gases emitted in producing it was unnecessary. So interventions can reduce this loss and waste. And as food moves from farm to fork, I was trying to figure out like where can we reduce that demand. So while cross country skiing across the Arctic Circle, I built this company with a business plan to illuminate the power of food, fruits and vegetables, to restore the health of people and the planet.
Amazing. And let's talk about that. Was there a moment in your career though where you said, "Okay, I've got this expertise. My family's been in sugar for for a while. I've got this expertise, and I want to use it for good." Was there like a moment where you're like, "Okay, I actually I can do something in this industry"?
Yeah, I think before founding Pure Plus, I was the global head of partnerships at Live Earth, and I was
Mhm.
tasked with leading government, NGO, and corporate partnerships. So when you look at the United Nations and them meeting in 2015 for the COP21 and signing the climate change treaty, and really aiming for us with Live Earth, getting signatures and petitions so that leaders would get on board with their efforts and successfully adopt a new climate treaty for a sustainable future. I think launching that campaign with these artists, NGOs, governments, brands throughout the world to raise awareness, made us realize that through Live Earth and through these partner organizations, isn't it amazing what you can do around climate change? But we wanted to figure out how can we build a community. And when I looked at the fruits and vegetables that were being used by ingredient companies around the world when I came back from Svalbard, I realized a lot of them were used for flavor and color and more clean label ingredients. And I thought, if we could utilize that 20% that goes unharvested on the field because they're imperfect and make it into a plant based powder, it now has 2, 3 years shelf life. So now we can actually get involved with the global citizens and they can realize that through their wallet, they can purchase something that is a climate impactful product. So as we built the powder to have that shelf life, we've thought about being that ingredient company to replace sugar and filler in foods because we realized there was a lot of extra in these single delivery items. And because I do come from candy, it was interesting just to see, like, how much can you put in something as small as 3 or 4 or 5 grams, right? And so I was trying to figure out how can we make it fun around superfoods that are right here in your local environment instead of feeling like I need to go get acai in Brazil or these different fruits and vegetables that were becoming a thing. So taking the most climate impactful, nutrient dense fruits and vegetables from the US or from Europe and saying, how do we, work with that and tell the story of the local farms and communicate through channels an educational moment around what is in your food and the need for people to get 5 to 8 servings of fruits and vegetables. So I think, it was a combination of all these things I knew to build this thing called climate candy and start a completely different category, something that's just not been out there before in the candy world.
So, what's the definition of climate candy? Tell us more about that.
Well, we actually put it in the Urban Dictionary, so you can look up climate candy. It was approved back in November. It's a real word, but it means that it's candy that was created using upcycled fruits and vegetables, and it's something that is focused on utilizing the fruits and vegetables as a nutrient dense formula, right? So giving back for the health of people, but also the planet. So I think when I look at our goal to recreate candy using fruits and vegetables, but keep that nutrition intact, it means that we have to utilize a different form of production. So when we look at the nearly 2/3 of food waste and where it occurs in that production distribution side, and then local sourcing of ingredients to the manufacturers and distribution locations, it really improves the carbon footprint of FAVES dramatically if we look at the entire supply chain. And then second, we improve basic food safety standards. So, the higher standards extend food supplies and prevent waste. So, you're using the high quality technology that's out there. And I think third, we focus on the customers. So now all of a sudden, the result of these strategies is that more people can be fed nutrition, and it improves the environment because there's less stress on agricultural resources, urban landfills, and really the global environment overall.
Got it. And which design principles did you apply in the early days to the product? Was it always clear that you wanted something that's, good for the environment, helping kind of solve climate change in terms of reducing food waste and also having a healthy product? Was that very clear from day one? Or how did kind of the product development evolve and the principles you applied to it?
Well, I think increasingly we expect our professional endeavors to line up with our values, interests, personal histories, and beliefs. And I wanted to have a clear and deeply satisfying answer to the question, why did you spend all this time building this company, right? Or building this product? So when I decided to create Pure Plus, I wanted to make a positive impact on people's lives and health and the health of the planet. The business idea was very consistent with my values and lifestyle, and it contributed to my personal goals and dreams. So it makes it really easy to do work when all of that lines up. So it, directly and positively affects lives beyond mine, and the world's better off if I succeed, right? So it has that positive environmental impact. So we consider ourselves earth first. So it's kind of funny because there's so many things out there that are considered healthy candy, healthy snacks, and they're really focused on the me, not the we. So we
Mm,
consider ourselves earth first, right? So it's like, how do we create a set of food focused
mm,
climate restoration
mm,
goals to educate the public on our mission? Creating and eating candy can help reverse global warming and improve health of people and planet. So it's very odd for people to think about because it's so kind of simple. But food is the rising, as one of the most powerful levers for reversing global warming. So when I look at that capability to share this dream of ours to teach millions of citizens how easy it is to affect change, I think it's just high time people realize and can seize their full power, that it's really what we choose to eat. And that includes all of us.
Okay, so what's really intriguing for me is to hear a bit more about how you actually think about the core problem that you're solving. Because there seems to be like quite a few problems that this could solve. Like if you think about what types of sweets people are usually eating that are really unhealthy, that are contributing to obesity, to ill health. There's the food waste problem that you're solving. That food waste problem is very closely related to climate change. Um, there's like kind of a few different problems coming together, and I'm wondering, do you feel like you're focused on one of those, or are they really intertwined for you? And how do you kind of measure and focus on these problems as you grow the company as well?
Right. So I think for us, it's about the climate first. We are climate candy, right? So it's the way we eat and produce food being a significant contributor to climate change. In fact, agriculture is estimated to contribute 13 to 24% of global greenhouse gas emissions. So, given this enormous footprint, wasting less food presents a key opportunity to address climate change. So, with food being this optimization, like you're talking about with health, I think it also is this really strong lever for the environmental sustainability on Earth. So I think it requires a combination of substantial shifts towards, mostly plant-based dietary patterns, which is on that health of people side. But then it's a dramatic, 50% reduction in food waste if we're going to hit the goals of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals by 2030 and 2050. So this really also is an increase in probably 100% increase in the consumption of fruits and vegetables. I mean, only 1 in 10 are getting their 5 to 8 servings a day. So I think even myself as a plant-based vegan athlete, it's very hard to get to that point, even 10 servings a day, because that's even better from a health standpoint. So I think when I created this business, I launched the product so it could grow continuously and be that category definer, be new to the world, be different from what's out there today. And I realized that the most exciting businesses are the ones that are that differentiated, that disruptive, and I think that imbued with this mission and personality we've given it. Now, on the side of, obviously obesity, diabetes, concerns around what has actually inhibited the candy market, we've seen a lot of manufacturers, come up with sugar-free and low-calorie candies to tackle this situation. But what I've observed, these improvements, it's really a bigger challenge to face is around, what can we do that's not just an alternative sweetener or a zeroed out label. As an athlete, I look at it and say, wait a minute, food is fuel. So
Mm,
how do we redefine that category of healthy candy to include high nutrition content. Because right
Mm,
now, it looks like they're just switching out ingredients and you're ending up with this 100-calorie snack. But I think that our goal is to kind of recreate candy. All of a sudden, you're adding candy with the word climate, and it's like we're using fruits and vegetables, and you're actually getting the nutrition from it, not just using it for color or flavor. And it's just on the label, but you're realizing that through the typical methods of making most confections, they're destroying that nutrition, in that tasty treat. So I think over the past years, our nutrition scientists have, tested dozens of recipes and form factors and flavors of candy that can be congruent with our mission. And most importantly, they all
mm.
had to, have those high run rates. We've always done things at full scale factory operations, so that way we be sure that we have a positive environmental and social impact. It's maximized. It's not something that we started in a very small, kitchen process. We wanted to make sure this is the same product you're going to get when it's put through an SQF audited facility.
Ah, yeah. Okay. So yeah, my question is just on the role of incumbents versus startups. Obviously, you have expertise in both. So I'd be really keen to understand, like, in terms of a transition towards more healthy snacks and sweets, as well as eco-conscious sweets. What do you think is the role of those? Is it that we need more startups disrupting the space? Do you see incumbents already taking action, or is it like a mix of both?
Well, I think, when I look at spending the year of 2021 redeveloping the candy line at factories from upstate New York to St. Louis to Chicago to NorCal to SoCal, really looking at, what can we launch, through retrofitting equipment to handle plant-based fibers. We not only developed a proprietary line of powders, but also moved us past the concept phase to have equipment at the ready for high run rate production. So the lesson we learned early on in the CPG world is it must be delicious, obviously, and especially considering the sweet tooth out there. I mean, I've ate Dum Dum since I was one, so I know that the tip of your tongue, like, you better taste that sweet. It better not be just a fruit snack or a fruit leather. This is candy. This is climate candy. This is the candy
Mm,
category. So I think many early form factors and recipes, needed to have that flavor explosion and that sweet satisfaction. So when you look at some of the things out there today, either it's alternative sugars to give that sweetness, or it's always these entrepreneurs. But then you're seeing some of the incumbents, the larger conglomerates, saying, "How do we just buy into those entrepreneurs' companies?" So you're seeing the Hue Chocolates and the Lilies and the Smart Sweets all get bought by larger entities, so that then they can use their distribution channels to push it out from a national and a global standpoint. So, they see it as, we can't change over the nostalgic candy. There's people that love that candy the way it is. Especially with Spangler Candy Company, it's been around since 1906. People are used to that small Dum Dum lollipop, that Necco wafer. Everybody has that nostalgia for it bringing you back to that story of family or a story of, some moment in time or experience. So those are the type of things that's tough to change, right? But as long as you don't upsize them and make them bigger, it can still have that sweet treat. That's the thing that I see in society today is, still allowing for these sweet treats, but then, making sure it's not a major part of your diet. So I think, unfortunately, what I'm seeing today is people just saying no to things. And the problem is, I grew up and,
mm,
this candy was almost like a food group, but we had the opportunity to eat everything. And then there would just be these glass jars of candy in our grandparents' house that were always filled. And you'd grab one as you ran out the door to go rollerblading or, go skateboarding. But it wasn't something that was, negative. And I think what happens today is there's a birthday
mm.
party for these kids, and the kids eat 6 cupcakes and as much candy as possible, or Halloween comes along and they just can't help themselves and they eat so much candy all at once. And I think it's just unfortunate that we haven't figured out that way that expectation's a little bit different. right?
Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. I recently learned about the Swedish model where they have a specific weekday, I think Saturdays, where the whole family goes to the shop to buy sweets, and everybody can have as many sweets as they want, and they kind of really indulge in it, but they limit it to one day. I guess that's still limitation. I guess the model you're going for is, we can have it all. We can have, low sugar snacks that are sustainable, that are good for us, or obviously if faves is the only thing I'm eating, that's probably not good for me, but like in terms of the within reasonable consumption. um how tricky is that to make it work? Because it seems like in the industry, either it is trying to replicate a really sweet taste that mainstream candy has, which is full of sugar with, like, as you said, sweeteners and things like that, which may or may not be good for you. um or you go lower sugar, but it's not as sweet, and maybe customers aren't quite used to that taste. How did you go on that journey, and where do you fit in there? Is it that people need to get used to this kind of a new type of flavor with your candy, or did you manage to recreate like what people prefer?
I think that's what we did to be different, was to make sure that we tasted like candy. Kids will tell you immediately if they think they're eating something healthy. They don't. We didn't want them to
Mhm.
be able to taste the vegetables. We wanted to be stealth nutrition, and that's why we called it FAVES. It's an acronym for fruit and vegetable sweets. And so I remember one of these little girls that tried it. She was like, "Amy, I got this great idea for you. On your packaging, it says that it's made with fruits and vegetables, but they're not teaching us cursive anymore at school. So if you put it on cursive, then the kids won't know, but the parents will know they're getting something better, right?" So I think that's really interesting, just to hear kids say, "Hey, this tastes like candy. Just don't let us know that we're saving, 6 carrots and 2 beets and squash and sweet potato and pumpkin." But there's that educational side where I want them to know, by you buying this 6 pack, you're saving and rescuing this many fruits and vegetables. And then the end of the year, giving everybody the impact report and saying, "Look what you did. By buying and purchasing candy, you saved 200 pumpkins and 300 carrots and whatever it may be." And really making sure that the individual knows what they're offsetting, not us as a company. Because there's no way that people understand completely, like, greenhouse gas emissions. "Oh, I flew across the US or to Europe, I better offset. I'm planting some trees." I think that's an amazing thing. And Vice President Al Gore will tell you a million times that it's not about these climate technologies, just plant more trees, right? So I definitely believe in that. But I think that if we can get it into the household and make people understand that they can do it through the food they eat, that's where I think there's success. So that's what gets me super excited. We're not trying to be another just healthy snack or fruit snack type of thing. We're trying to be candy, and we're kind of re-educating around, almost like a grocery store. Let's say you walked in. Do I want to be in the confection aisle going up against all the others in the end caps? Not really. That's why direct to consumer makes sense for us, because we can tell our story better. So when I look at the grocery stores, I'm like, I'd rather be next to the sweet potatoes, beets, carrots, squash, all of that, because then it's an educational moment for the family. So they walk in, they see us next to root vegetables, the kids like the candy, and they're like, "Hey kids, then if you like this, you might love beets or carrots or squash." So I think that's really what I'm looking for, to be very, very different than most when it comes to even the retail side.
And yeah, where are you on your journey? Actually, we didn't quite cover that, but like, how far you're selling the product, obviously direct to consumer already. But how far did you scale already, and what are your plans ahead?
So we already launched one form factor of Faves on climatecandy.com. So that's our direct to consumer site. We have a sweet and a sour chew. And then in August, we're coming out with another form factor of Climate Candy. And then a quarter after that, we'll do it again. So we just keep on being this kind of modern day climate candy land, right? Building this world where people can love the sweet and sour, chewy type candy, or you've got the people that love sweet and sour hard type candy. So we want to make sure that we're there for everybody. And then we really look at e-groceries, online groceries, because we can still tell our story that way. And then really cool partnerships, all about collaboration, influencers, doing things around experiences or where we'll find those families, art museums, sports centers, schools, that type of thing that's just a little bit different than most. And we're not looking to just be on your grocery store shelves where you don't understand the complete story around climate candy. So yeah, it's very exciting times for us, and we closed our preferred round at the end of February with Truesdale Ventures and PTK Capital, which very exciting moment to know that we have the funding behind this to really feel like we can tell the world more about our wider goals.
Hi, it's Michael here. I want to interrupt this episode briefly to make you aware of two exciting things that are going on here at Impact Hustlers. First of all, if you are a founder solving social and environmental problems and you're looking to connect to like-minded founders like yourself, you're looking to learn from some of the most experienced entrepreneurs, experts, and investors in the world, and you want some support in actually fundraising for your startup, we've built the Impact Hustlers community. We are now about 100 entrepreneurs and founders, and we're growing every month with more founders from all over the world joining us. And we're really here to support each other. And our goal is to build the most supportive ecosystem for impact-driven founders. So if you're a founder, head to impacthustlers.com/community to learn more. And if you're not a founder, but you want to work for impact driven companies, we have also recently launched something really exciting for you. And that is the Impact Hustlers Talent Collective. This is a group of some of the most ambitious and talented individuals in the world that want to use their talent to make a difference in the world and work for some of the most innovative, impact driven companies. If you're keen to join the Talent Collective, this is all free of charge, obviously. You can submit your application to the Talent Collective on impacthustlers.com/jobs. And what will happen as a result is that companies will start approaching you through our Talent Collective and share job opportunities with you. We'll also share our weekly jobs update with you, where you see relevant jobs in the field of impact, including from all the previous podcast guests. So you will actually see opportunities from companies that have been covered here on the show, and also companies that are members of our Impact Hustlers community. So go to impacthustlers.com/jobs if you're looking for a job, or if you're a founder and need some support, go to impacthustlers.com/community. Okay, let's get back to the episode now. Got it. Let's shift gears a bit and go into your entrepreneurial journey. Obviously, you come from a entrepreneurial family, and entrepreneurship definitely wasn't new for you when you first started out. But I'm sure you still learned your lessons along the journey. And is there anything that sticks out for you, like one of the hardest lessons you had to learn as a founder? Something that was incredibly difficult along your journey that you can share with us and that others can learn from?
Well, I think that as a entrepreneur, you're exposed to new insights, transformational experiences, really unique opportunities to make a positive impact in the world. So I think that going into being this entrepreneur, it gave me the opportunity to inspire others that are willing to take action too and eager to learn, inspire them to leverage their network. So I think the plus that we had from the start was the network we had, the research we could do, understand what was needed in the market. I think that where we started with the powders was a start, but understanding that you always had to pivot. You have to be very nimble. We didn't end up going out as an ingredient company. All of a sudden, we used it as Pureplus inside. All of a sudden, we were making our own proof of concept around candy. Next thing you know, you're rejiggering equipment. You're finding what works and what doesn't. You're breaking things at factories left and right, and trying to figure out what can utilize these plant fibers. So I think one of the things that you learn as an entrepreneur is that you have to take action and kind of rise from, some of these setbacks, and understand that they're not setbacks, they're all learnings. And so as we learned along the way, it allowed us not to go out with some of the products that weren't as delicious or weren't quite the form factor that worked, or not quite the sustainable packaging that we wanted, because we wanted to be completely circular. So I think you just have to remain so much more open-minded and realize that there's all these things that kind of are roadblocks, but they aren't, because the learnings allow you to then get to that next phase and the next phase. So, and then knowing that you'll slowly but surely build those partnerships and those investors that are truly strategic. So you'll figure out, of the people you're meeting along the way, who is along for the whole ride, right? So then you realize, these are the ones that understand the powerful partnerships you're trying to generate, or the storytelling, or kind of doing things from a combined worldwide network, because we always think so big, and you can't help but do that. I think that's true for all entrepreneurs, and a lot of the female entrepreneurs that are on the rise that I meet. So I'd say that, probably on all ends, it was always around operations, because you can have a really good idea, but if you can't execute on it, and you find that you can do it in a co-op kitchen, but you can't do it at scale, then that's not a product that's going to have velocity. And so I never was one that said, oh, look, we can do it at small scale. Let's go and run it on full scale equipment. That's not going to work. It's not going to be the same form factor. Unfortunately, it's going to be not even going to be the same ingredients. And I think a lot of times you're seeing things in stores and you're like, oh, wow, what an amazing company. They're not putting a lot of these ingredients in. And I sit there and say, well, let's see what happens when they get a larger, purchase order. Let's see what happens when, they have to deal with contract manufacturing or build their own factory and their own equipment, because, confectionery hasn't changed for a long time. And a lot of the ones for Spangler Candy Company, what's great about it is that they were already brands that then became acquired. And it was great because everybody already knew some of the brand names under the Spangler Candy, holding company. And I think that's why I built the company I did today, because Pureplus is the holding company. It's the powder lines. And then we put Pureplus, like an Intel chip inside a computer, we put it inside. So then it's inside of the FAVES, it's inside the Climate Candy, and everything that we do around that category.
Let's be very clear on the Pureplus product, because we actually haven't spoken much about it. So yeah, what are these powders, and how do they actually get into the candies? And is there other use cases for those as well?
Yeah, so Pureplus, when I first built that out with a color line of red, orange, green, and purple, it was a mixture of fruits and vegetables that were most nutrient dense, but also most climate impactful. That I felt that would get us the most servings in the smallest amount. And then we are going to put them into everything from bars and beverages and all of these kind of healthy snacks you see out there that could utilize this as an ingredient. But when we looked at it, we said, well, why not look at the $80 billion global market of candy and show that proof of concept around something that has so much sugar and filler in it, and figure out if there's an opportunity there for us to show this solution to others so they can take advantage of it too. So I guess I'm one that's almost like open source. It's like more people need to do this, because there is this opportunity to provide things that are being wasted, or also just more plant-based fibers and things into foods, so that then there's this stealth nutrition, so people are getting even more out of the food that they're eating.
Got it. So it's really kind of a dual model where you're selling the powders, and other manufacturers can actually start using those, and you also created your own brand where you demonstrate it's also all possible. Is that right? That's a good summary.
No, we didn't do the B2B. Unfortunately, as an entrepreneur, you've got to pick and choose. And if we started a B2B company and a B2C company, we'd have to hire completely different people for two companies. So I have a completely different sales source, marketing source. Like those teams, they don't identify if you're selling ingredients versus a consumer brand. So we decided to use our powders in our own products, which made the most sense. So that way, then down the road, if there's an acquisition opportunity, people can look at us and say, not only are we acquiring an amazing brand, an amazing community that identifies and is like-minded around what we're doing with upcycling fruits and vegetables from farms, they're also getting this ingredient side where if they're a large enough company and they've got a model of snacks that they want to change and iterate on, they would then have this, ingredient and formulas to be able to work with. So I think that's what's great is we've built this kind of scope of work within our company that allows us to kind of show that R&D side that entrepreneurs can do.
Hmm. You mentioned a minute ago the challenge of companies really being able to produce at scale, and yeah, if you look out there, there's loads of startups. Even in the Impact Hustlers community, we got I just got some products from one of our founders here. Well, it's not advertisement. I think my video is not going to be visible, but some nice chocolate snacks from a founder, and he's just starting out, and he has a background in big industry. But the big challenge is really like scaling up production and being able to even cope with that. Obviously have some good experience, again, like I guess that's what I call an unfair advantage in some ways, like some advantage over somebody like me starting out and not having the background you have. But is there any advice you can share with founders getting into the space, especially food and sweets, in terms of production? Is it just a case of getting the right talent early on if you don't have the expertise in terms of production? Is it a case of partnering with incumbents? What are the models that you've seen work well, and what's your advice to early stage founders in the space?
I would say it's all about partnership opportunities for immediate growth. So focusing on your supply chain, working with those that you can, for us in the agricultural sector to build the upcycled supply chain from seed to market, that was the most important thing we could do. So by building that powder line first, and especially during this time of this kind of supply chain crisis, is then I could know that we have access to our most important ingredient, right? And then from a manufacturing standpoint, utilizing, yes, my experience, but I never actually worked in the family factory. Like I was off trying to change the world in Washington, D.C. I was all about what are we doing about climate change. I was working with Live Earth on global concerts for change and kind of a different world. So I did the exact same thing. I had to find out who to work with, who are the right manufacturers that can help keep the nutrition molecules intact with this product. How can we get that run rate needed for partnerships so that I could go to a larger entity and say, yes, I'll be back in 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it may be, and I can fulfill those size purchase orders. So I think it's just a matter of people, whatever business they start, they just have to determine, just like me, that it has some sort of focus on your values and lifestyle, and that it contributes to that those goals and dreams. So I think that's the biggest thing is, what kind of positive impact do you want to make? And for us, it's always been about the environment, because myself, my founders, Kevin Wall and Sue Smalley, and all the investors, they invested in me not for another CPG brand, but for what we were committed to for the overall impact, the environment. It was more like, okay, how do we use this seed money to expand our footprint in the industry? How do we focus on sales growth and generating revenue for the business? Because then we can keep telling this story and we can keep on getting in front of people in an affordable, accessible way through candy, and be able to make sure that you're based on sound, rational business analysis, based on logic and good reasoning that leads investors to see that your offering has the highest potential return with the lowest possible corresponding risk. So you've got to run it like a business, especially if you're impact focused. Because there's a lot of investors out there that are like, oh, it's so focused on impact. What's the business model? So you really, really need to make sure that they understand that you've got things covered, and especially after certain rounds, that you're bringing on the full-time employees. They can bet on me for so long, but then you got to slowly but surely bring in the team around you to make sure that you've got all of the things stacked in your place to be able to get into a Series A round or to get some of these larger partnerships.
Hmm. Any advice around, especially in the food space, partnering with manufacturers and working with them to develop the products, etc., versus actually building your own in-house expertise, manufacturing yourself, starting from scratch? What path did you choose, and what would you recommend to founders? Is there any kind of blank?
There are a lot of food innovation scientists out there, and there's a lot of them that will utilize funds from entrepreneurs to make a proof of concept. Problem is that it's done in a lab outside of a manufacturer. I solely believe that either you've got to partner with them, but immediately know what the machinery is and work directly with that manufacturer, or you have to work directly with the R&D team in the manufacturing. Because without that, it's a product made out of a kitchen, a product made out of a co-op kitchen, right? There's no way that that same formula is going through 100-foot long line equipment, right? So I think for me, it's focused on the supply chain, making sure that you know what ingredients that you're looking for, what are your no's absolute not using when you're working with a manufacturer, and seeing if they're as disruptive as you, because a lot of times those manufacturers, they're fearful. They've got very old equipment worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, and if not millions. They don't want to see you break their machinery with plant-based fibers and not using flow agents. I think that's a key thing, is understanding scaling and understanding that you don't want to deal with labor costs and audits and SQF certifications, and that's a lot of money to build out a factory. I think you have to determine your timeline and when you want to do that. But for me, it made more sense for us to just keep on building these kind of modern day Willy Wonka world candies and figure out which ones will scale and utilize different factories for each form factor and figure out which ones make the most sense for financial sustainability. And I think that's what we do.
Got it. One more question about the future. If you think about 10 years ahead from today, how does the world look like if FAVES and Pureplus succeeds?
I'd say that the result of all the strategies, like I told you before, right, addressing the production and distribution where 2/3 of food waste occurs, that will be cut down. Second, there'll be even further quality assurance with food basic standards around fruits and vegetables, so we can utilize more of it. It doesn't go to waste. And third, I think consumers will understand where their food comes from. So now all of a sudden, you're improving their nutrition, how they're being fed. People are getting to the point of getting their 5 to 8 servings of fruits and vegetables. And I think people are understanding that more and more today. And then I think our urban landfills and our agricultural resources, they aren't being filled. Like it's not to the point where we're getting rid of produce in that way. So I think, as we build this product and generate customers to learn more about upcycled or rescued produce, I think it's an intense focus on this idea. So I think we'll get it right. I think people 5 years from now will understand completely what upcycled is, and hopefully they'll choose that over many of the other produced products. And hopefully they will also look at this and say, wow, we can actually achieve the SDGs. We can see what happened in Paris in 2015 with the climate change treaty with Live Earth, and we can look for this opportunity to see food as the defining issue of the 21st century. So I think mine's more around impact, but then at that point, I would hope that we have such large distribution, or we're acquired by another company that can help us partner and distribute even wider. So that would be my hope that many years down the road.
Amazing. Thank you, Amy, very much for sharing your story and educating us about the product. I can't wait until you ship to the UK. I don't think that's the case yet, if I'm right. But I'll definitely watch out for that and wish you all the best for your journey.
Oh, thank you so much. We really appreciate being on the show today. And I hope that people learn more about how food is produced and what is consumed and how much is lost and wasted, and how that can heavily shape the health of people on the planet. So I think that by utilizing the current system more efficiently, we can feed the world's population today and tomorrow. And I think it is the lowest hanging fruit when it comes to solving the puzzle of food loss and waste. So I hope that others will look into what climate candy means, and really listen to what we're trying to educate people around.
Thank you, Amy. Appreciate it. See you soon. Bye bye.
All right.
I really hope you enjoyed today's episode and learned some valuable lessons from today's guest. I want to share two things with you. First of all, if you're a founder and you're solving a social or an environmental problem with your company, there is something that we've launched recently to support founders like you and to introduce you to more founders that are like minded and that are solving very difficult problems in the world. And that is the Impact Hustlers community. It is a community of over 100 founders that solve problems like climate change, education, the crisis in healthcare, and really pushing the boundaries on what's possible. And what we do as a community, we connect to each other. We run mastermind groups where you can connect to other entrepreneurs and founders. We bring experienced investors, entrepreneurs, and experts in to run workshops and Ask Me Anything sessions. And you can also connect to others in our online community. And we have something for those of you that are actually fundraising. We have an investor matching tool where you get introduced to relevant investors based on the startup that you are building. But it may be the case that you're not a founder and you just want to be part of the change and you want to join some of these companies that you've learned about here at the Impact Hustlers podcast. And we've got something for you as well. We've recently launched the Impact Hustlers Talent Collective. This is a group of some of the most ambitious individuals in the world that want to make a change and an impact with their careers. And you can join the Talent Collective, obviously completely free of charge. You can apply to it and we will introduce you on a regular basis to companies recruiting people like yourself. So you'll get access to exclusive job opportunities from companies that have been on the podcast, but also beyond that. So make sure that you go to impacthustlers.com/jobs if you're looking for jobs in the social impact space. Even if you're not actively looking right now, you should still sign up and be part of our talent collective. And if you're a founder, don't forget, go to impacthustlers.com/community. Okay, thanks very much for listening and bye. See you at the next episode.